The Aquanaut Uprising. Chapter 1, The Blue Prison. The hum of the filtration system was a constant lullaby in Aquatica. It sang through the metal walls, pulsed through the bioluminescent algae that lit the corridors, even thrummed in Reef's own chest. She leaned against the cool conduit, its gentle vibration a stark contrast to the tension knotting her gut. "Reef, you sure about this?" A voice hissed from the shadows. Finn, her best friend and fellow engineer. His eyes, wide and a little too bright in the dim light, reflected her own anxieties. "As I'll ever be." Reef ran a hand through her short, salt-bleached hair. The gesture was more for herself than him. Reassurance in a world that offered little. They were deep in the maintenance tunnels, the underbelly of hydrotech. The air was thick with the metallic tang of ozone and the faint, ever-present scent of chlorine. The corporation's tight control extended to the very air they breathed, the water they drank, every aspect of life in this underwater city. Reef gestured to the humming conduit. "This thing's barely keeping up. The filters are clogged, the water's getting stale." Finn nodded grimly. "Yeah, and Voss doesn't care. He's too busy lining his pockets." He spat the words, disgust twisting his features. Conrad Voss, Hydrotech's CEO, a man whose ambition outweighed any concern for the city he ruled. "That's why I did it," Reef said, tapping the bulky pack strapped to her back. Inside was the prototype her water filtration system, a marvel of engineering that could purify Aquatica's water tenfold. It was their ticket out of this gilded cage, a chance to break Hydrotech's stranglehold. "You know what'll happen if they find it," Finn warned. His voice was barely a whisper, but the fear hung heavy in the air. Hydrotech's security forces were ruthless. Dissent was not tolerated. Reef's eyes hardened. "They won't find it. Not if we're careful." She took a deep breath, the stale air burning her lungs. "Come on," she said, voice steadier than she felt. "Let's change the tide." They moved through the maze of tunnels, their footsteps muffled by the thick algae carpeting the floor. Each step was a gamble, a whispered prayer that the sensors wouldn't pick them up. The tension crackled between them, a living thing in the close confines. As they neared their destination, a maintenance hatch deep within Hydrotech's central filtration system, Reef's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it, the moment of truth. She glanced at Finn, his face pale but resolute. They were in this together, two small figures against a corporate giant. But in that moment, as the hatch hissed open, revealing the gargantuan heart of Aquatica's water supply, Reef felt a surge of defiance. She met Finn's gaze, a silent promise passing between them. They were about to make waves, big ones, and Hydrotech would never see it coming. Reef grinned, the defiant spark in her eyes, a beacon in the dimly lit tunnel. "Ready?" Finn returned the grin, a hint of manic energy in his eyes. "Born ready, Reef." With a synchronized nod, they moved into action, the prototype held aloft like a beacon of hope in this watery dystopia. The hum of the filtration system filled their ears, a steady rhythm to their synchronized movements. They worked quickly, their training taking over as they seamlessly integrated the prototype into the main system. It was a dance of rebellion, choreographed in the shadows. Chapter 2. The Coral Sanctuary. The bioluminescent glow of the coral forest painted Reef's face in shifting hues of blue and green. The sight, once a familiar comfort, now felt alien after days of hiding in the dark, dank tunnels of Aquatica's underbelly. "Welcome to Sanctuary," a voice rumbled from the shadows. A figure emerged, tall and broad, clad in kelp-woven armor. Mara, the leader of the Aquanauts. Reef swallowed, clutching the prototype tighter to her chest. She'd heard whispers of the rebels, their defiance echoing through the city's whispers. Now she stood before their leader, hope and trepidation warring within her. "You're the engineer," Mara stated, her voice firm but not unkind. "The one who dared to challenge Hydrotech." Reef nodded, her voice barely a whisper. I couldn't stand by any longer." Mara's eyes softened. "None of us could. That's why we're here." She gestured to the others who had emerged from the coral maze, a motley crew of divers, scientists, even a few former Hydrotech workers, all united by their disgust for Voss and his regime. "This is your invention?" Mara asked, her gaze fixed on the prototype. Reef nodded, pride warring with exhaustion. A water filtration system. It could purify all of Aquatica's water. A murmur of excitement rippled through the group. Finn, who had stuck to Reef's side like a remora, grinned. It's brilliant. Revolutionary. Mara extended a hand, rough and calloused but steady. We can use this. Hydrotech has held us hostage with their water for too long. That night, under the bioluminescent canopy, Reef explained her invention. The Aquanauts listened with rapt attention, their faces illuminated by a mix of hope and determination. When she finished, the silence was broken by a cheer that echoed through the coral forest. The next morning, the sanctuary buzzed with activity. The Aquanauts, inspired by Reef's invention, began planning their first major sabotage mission. Reef, eager to contribute, offered her expertise, her fingers itching to work with tools again. We'll target their main filtration plant, Mara declared, her voice ringing with authority. We'll show them we're not afraid. The following days were a whirlwind of preparation. Reef worked tirelessly alongside the others, modifying her prototype into a weaponized device. They trained in the labyrinthine coral reefs, learning to navigate the underwater currents and evade hydrotech patrols. The night of the mission arrived, cloaked in darkness. The Aquanauts moved like shadows, their bioluminescent tattoos glowing faintly as they infiltrated the filtration plant. Reef, her heart pounding in her chest, planted the device. With a silent countdown, they triggered it. A shockwave of energy rippled through the plant, disabling the main filters. Alarms blared, lights flashed, but the Aquanauts were already gone, disappearing into the darkness like phantoms. The next day, the news spread through Aquatica like wildfire. Hydrotech's water supply was compromised. Panic gripped the city, but amidst the fear, a spark of hope ignited. The Aquanauts had struck a blow against the oppressive regime, and the people of Aquatica were watching. Chapter 3. Whispers from the Deep. The ruins shimmered in the dim light of the submersibles, an ethereal city frozen in time. Reef reached out, her fingers tracing the intricate carvings on a moss-covered column. The stone was smooth, almost warm, as if it still held the echoes of life. Incredible, Finn breathed beside her, his eyes wide with wonder. A whole civilization? Down here? Mara nodded, her expression thoughtful. The legend spoke of a city beneath the waves, a place of wisdom and harmony. It seems they were true. The Aquanauts had stumbled upon the ruins during a scouting mission, a hidden oasis amidst the bleak ocean floor. It was a sprawling metropolis, its buildings sculpted from coral and adorned with luminescent pearls. Even in its decay, it radiated a sense of tranquility and purpose. They called themselves the Maris, Reef said, reading from a partially submerged tablet. Her voice echoed softly through the underwater silence. They lived in harmony with the ocean, using its power to sustain their civilization. But what happened to them? A young Aquanaut named Kai asked, his voice hushed with reverence. The legends say they disappeared without a trace, Mara replied, their knowledge lost to time. Reef ran her fingers over the tablet, her brow furrowed in concentration. But maybe not all of it. Look at these symbols. She pointed to a series of intricate glyphs carved into the stone. They look like schematics. Finn leaned in, his eyes scanning the symbols. For what? Reef shrugged. I don't know yet, but it's something important. Something that could change everything. A surge of excitement coursed through the Aquanauts. Could this be the key to breaking Hydrotech's stranglehold? Could the secrets of the Maris hold the power to free Aquatica? But their excitement was short-lived. A sudden tremor shook the ruins, sending a cloud of sediment billowing through the water. What was that? Kai asked, his voice edged with alarm. Mara's expression hardened. Hydrotech, they must have tracked us. The Aquanauts scrambled back to their submersibles, their hearts pounding in their chests. As they ascended towards the surface, they could see the dark silhouettes of Hydrotech vessels closing in. They're going to destroy the city, Reef said, her voice thick with anger and despair. Mara shook her head. Not if we can help it. The Aquanauts launched a desperate defense, their submersibles darting through the ruins, firing energy blasts at the approaching vessels. But they were outnumbered and outgunned. As the Hydrotech ships rained down fire on the ancient city, Reef felt a pang of grief for the lost civilization. But she also felt a renewed determination. The Maris had known how to live in harmony with the ocean. Their knowledge, their wisdom, could not be lost again. "We have to get back to Sanctuary," Mara ordered, her voice crackling over the comms. "We have to warn the others. We have to fight." The Aquanauts made their escape, leaving the ruins to their fate. But they carried with them the knowledge of the Maris, a beacon of hope in the deepening darkness. Chapter 4. Tempest's Fury. The sanctuary thrummed with a nervous energy, the bioluminescent algae casting flickering shadows on the faces of the assembled Aquanauts. Reef stood before them, her hands tracing the intricate patterns of the Maris schematics etched onto a salvaged data panel. "Hydrotech underestimated us," she declared, her voice echoing through the chamber. "They thought they could destroy our hope, silence our voices. But they were wrong." The crowd erupted in cheers, their faces alight with a fiery determination. Mako, the defected Hydrotech enforcer, stood beside Reef, a hint of pride in his hardened eyes. "They took our home, our families, our freedom," he growled, his voice raspy from years of breathing recycled air. "But now we take it back." The plan was audacious, a symphony of defiance orchestrated by Reef's genius. They would strike at the heart of Hydrotech, using the knowledge of the Maris to turn their own technology against them. Reef had spent countless hours deciphering the ancient schematics, her fingers stained with ink and her mind buzzing with possibilities. The Maris had harnessed the power of water in ways they could only dream of, creating a network of energy conduits that pulsed with the ocean's life force. "We can use their own conduits against them," Reef explained, her voice rising with excitement. "We can overload the system, create a surge of energy that will cripple their defenses." The Aquanauts worked tirelessly, day and night, forging weapons from salvaged Hydrotech tech, modifying their submersibles for maximum speed and maneuverability. Reef, fueled by a potent mix of grief and determination, worked alongside them, her hands never still, her mind always racing. The night of the Uprising arrived, a storm brewing both above and below the waves. The Aquanauts moved like a school of predatory fish, their submersibles slicing through the murky depths towards Hydrotech's central hub. Reef, at the helm of her modified vessel, the Tempest, led the charge. The Maris schematics glowed on her console, guiding her through the labyrinthine network of conduits. With each pulse of energy, she felt the power of the ancient civilization coursing through her veins. The battle was fierce, a clash of technology and will. Energy blasts ripped through the water, illuminating the darkness in flashes of blinding light. Hydrotech's defenses were formidable, but the Aquanauts were relentless, their fury fueled by years of oppression. Reef steered the Tempest towards the central hub, her heart pounding in her chest. This was it, the moment of truth. She channeled the energy of the Maris through the Tempest's modified systems, her fingers flying over the controls. A surge of power erupted from the Tempest, coursing through the conduits, overloading the system. The underwater city trembled as Hydrotech's defenses faltered, their weapons flickering and dying. The Aquanauts pressed their advantage, their cries of victory echoing through the depths. Reef, her eyes fixed on the crumbling Hydrotech headquarters, felt a surge of triumph. The tide had turned. The revolution had begun. Chapter 5. Echoes of Hope. The cheers of victory had faded, replaced by the quiet hum of Aquatica's newly restored filtration system. Sunlight filtered through the water, dappled the sanctuary's coral walls, casting long shadows that danced with the ebb and flow of the tide. Yet the air buzzed with a different kind of energy, a mix of hope and uncertainty. Reef sat in the heart of the sanctuary, the Maris data panel spread out before her. The glyphs shimmered with a faint luminescence, their secrets still unraveling in her mind. "It's beautiful," Finn murmured, peering over her shoulder. "Imagine what we could do with this knowledge." Reef sighed, tracing a finger over the intricate symbols. "I know, but at what cost?" Finn frowned, not understanding her hesitation. "We could change the world, Reef. End the water crisis, heal the planet." "But what if we unleash something we can't control?" Reef countered. "The Maris disappeared. We don't know what led to their demise. What if their technology was their downfall?" Mako, who had been listening silently, stepped forward. His gaze, usually hard and guarded, held a surprising gentleness. "Every tool can be a weapon, Reef. It's how we use it that matters." His words resonated with Reef. She looked around at the Aquanauts, their faces etched with exhaustion, but glowing with newfound hope. They had fought for this, risked everything for a chance at a better future. "You're right," she said, her voice gaining strength. "We can't let fear hold us back. We have a responsibility, not just to ourselves, but to the entire planet." The decision was made. The Aquanauts would share the Maris knowledge with the world, but carefully, responsibly. They would form alliances with other underwater cities, educate the surface dwellers, work towards a future where water was no longer a weapon, but a source of life. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Reef led a team of engineers in adapting the Maris technology, creating sustainable energy sources and water purification systems for Aquatica. The city thrived, its once dim corridors now aglow with vibrant life. News of their success spread, reaching other underwater communities. Delegations arrived, eager to learn from the Aquanauts. Reef, once a solitary engineer, found herself leading a movement, her voice echoing through the underwater networks, inspiring hope in countless hearts. But the threat of hydrotech still loomed. Voss had escaped, his whereabouts unknown. The Aquanauts knew he wouldn't stay hidden for long. They would have to be prepared for his inevitable return. One evening, as Reef watched the sun dip below the horizon, painting the water in hues of gold and crimson, Mara approached her. The elder Aquanaut's face was etched with worry. "Hydrotech is mobilizing," she said quietly. "They're gathering their forces, preparing to strike back." Reef nodded, a steely resolve hardening her gaze. "We won't let them win again. Not this time." The new dawn had brought hope to Aquatica, but it had also awakened a sleeping giant. The battle for the future of their world was far from over. Chapter 6, A Current of Change. Years had passed since the revolution. Aquatica wasn't just thriving, it was a beacon. Kelp farms swayed in the currents, their harvest feeding the city and beyond. Children played in the crystal-clear water, their laughter echoing through the once silent corridors. Reef stood on the observation deck of the newly built Hydro Academy, a sense of peace settling over her. Sunlight, filtered through the ocean's depths, painted the scene in a tranquil blue. Beside her, Finn adjusted the dials on a complex-looking machine, a twinkle in his eye. "Remember when we thought this was just a dream?" he asked, not looking up from his work. Reef smiled. "Feels like a lifetime ago." She glanced out at the bustling city, now a model of sustainable living. The Maris technology, once a closely guarded secret, was now shared openly. It had sparked a wave of innovation, a ripple effect that had reached far beyond Aquatica's walls. Other underwater cities, even some on the surface, had adopted their methods. The world was changing, and they had started it. "Reef!" Mako's voice boomed through the comm system. "We've got a message from the surface. The United Nations wants to establish a partnership." Reef exchanged a surprised look with Finn. "The surface dwellers? But they've always been so resistant to change." Mako chuckled. "Desperate times call for desperate measures. They're finally starting to see the error of their ways." Reef felt a surge of hope. If even the surface dwellers were willing to change, then maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for a better future. Later that day, Reef stood before a holographic projection of the UN Secretary General, her heart pounding in her chest. It was time to share their knowledge, to extend a hand of friendship to those who had once shunned them. "We offer you our technology, our expertise," Reef said, her voice steady and resolute. "But we also ask for your cooperation, your commitment to a sustainable future." The Secretary General nodded solemnly. "We understand the gravity of the situation. We're ready to work with you." A wave of relief washed over Reef. The Aquanaut Uprising had not just liberated a city, it had ignited a global movement. They had shown the world that change was possible, that hope could blossom even in the darkest depths. Weeks turned into months, and the partnership flourished. Aquanaut engineers traveled to the surface, sharing their knowledge and helping to rebuild a world ravaged by climate change. Reef watched as the barren landscapes transformed, as once polluted rivers ran clear, as the planet began to heal. One evening, Reef returned to the sanctuary, seeking solace in its familiar embrace. The bioluminescent glow of the coral soothed her weary soul, the gentle hum of the filtration system a comforting melody. She sat by the edge of the pool, her fingers trailing through the water. It was a connection to the past, to the Maris, to the ocean that had nurtured and protected them. As she gazed out at the endless expanse of blue, Reef knew their journey was far from over. There would be new challenges, new obstacles to overcome. But she also knew they were ready. They were the Aquanauts, and they would face the future with the same courage and determination that had brought them this far. The water, once a source of conflict and despair, had become a symbol of unity and hope. And Reef, the girl who had dared to dream of a better world, was now a beacon of change, her light shining brightly in the depths of the ocean.